thank you to our 3 sponsors for supporting our podcast. Johnny Russell's Art Caterers and Milltown Pies, who offer fantastic catering services, Alexander Grace Law, who provide modern and client-led legal services, and SBE Furnishings, who offer high-quality furnishings and electrical items at fantastic prices.
But I did all right. I think I got 7. I got 7.
Just one less, I guess 6.
6. I hit a 4 on purpose as well. I hit a spinner through cover point. So a bit of a thick edge, but and I think it were a bold. Jandua, left armour.
Yeah.
He had half a yard. So.
I've got no idea who he is.
Yeah. What were the scores in that game, Joe?
So Rishton batted first and got 181 off their 50 overs. They had Clinton Perrin as pro, and we were 103 all out off 46. You weren't playing, Jez?
No, I was just thinking what
Nor was Beneduc.
No,
I think so. I think it was the same season where we played Rishton away, where they got about 3 million.
Did you play in that one as well?
I did, unfortunately. Yeah, I've got a red inco.
Yeah, geez. Oh, God. So the game away, we had. So this 2001 season, Jez, must have been the one where with John Kent, where he only played a handful of games, I guess. Did he go home with a bad back or something like that?
That's right. Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Yeah, I can remember that for some reason. And again, Jez, you didn't play in this game either.
Right.
Rishton away.
Paul Stanley he might have had 1 wicket, I don't know, but he had 1 for 9, about 1 for 90 odd, and then he broke his hand broke his wrist trying to stop her. Russ Worley and Clinton Perrin put on absolutely loads. They both got tons. They both get tons.
Yeah, they put on 180.
Yeah, and Russ Worley absolutely smashed us all over. And we had Graham Lloyd as sub pro. So how many did they get, Joe?
They got 340.
340.
They got 340. The bowling figures, Haggers. Matt Hope, 14 overs, 4 for 75. Paul Stanley, 8 overs, 1 for 76. Proc, 4 overs, 0 for 20. Ryan Hesketh, 6 overs, 1 for 28. Graham Lloyd, 13 overs, none for 84. And Blaise, 5 overs, none for 41.
I remember Graham Lloyd. Graham Lloyd batted 3, I think. He went in, he hit his first 3 balls for 4. So I remember us being on balcony thinking, yep, here we go. Here we go.
We only need 320.
Yeah. And then next ball, they were out.
We were 118 all out of 31 overs. But a late rally from us because our top 5 were 66 for 6.
Did you play that game? Or?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I played.
Got 11.
Yeah.
But
I mean, just to throw into Gary here, and just as a little topic discuss, what 3 batters to play against? Clinton Perrin, Sleep, and Russell Waller. Yeah. Russell Davis weren't playing as well, were he? Tell me he weren't playing.
No, Russell had stopped back then, I think.
Well, if you'd have thrown Craig Smith into that mix as well,
he
took us apart plenty of times.
Yeah.
But that's a good trio, is that?
It is. Yeah, it's 100. They've all got hundreds in them, and they're highly likely one of them to get 100 every time you play against them.
Yeah.
Correct?
None of them are taking a backward step, are they?
No. Good positive players. So, Haggers, that's your first season. How many games did you play that year? Can you remember?
Can't remember. I'd probably say 4, 5. Sure.
Yeah.
Like I said earlier, Jez, if we're being honest, I was nowhere near ready for first team cricket, and I had a traumatic experience down at Burnley against James Anderson. I think
what happened there?
Won at games at not much. I played against Todmorden at home, and their pro were a big Aussie lad called Matt Nichols. And he were absolutely rapid. And night before, down at club, it were either Matt Stanley's 21st or it were Matt Stanley and Adele's engagement. So needless to say, we'd had a few beers and that before. I woke up, weren't really in the mood for playing cricket, feeling a bit under weather. Anyway, so it turns up that day and I went down to bat at 4. But basically, because of how quickly Nicholson were bowling, he absolutely swiftly opened batting that day, and I think he did quite well against it. He definitely hung around for a few overs. He absolutely peppered Swifty. And I remember the day after, it looked like somebody had been throwing darts at Swifty. He had these bruises all over his body, and it was horrendous. But anyway, I went down to bat at 4 that day against Nicholson.
He were a bruiser though, weren't he, Swifty?
He were, yeah. He could cough in his bruiser, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Before we move on, can I just ask what circumstances you happened to see Swifty's body the day after?
We obviously played and we're in the dressing room, we had unchanged.
All right, okay.
Yeah, anyway, so I went down to bat at 4 and Nicholson's bowling really quick. So obviously a few old Reds have got together and thought, we can't send Haggers in against this lad. So thankfully, I got moved down the order and weren't needed to bat. So a few weeks later, I can't remember how many weeks later this were, but so we're playing down at Burnley, big derby game down there, decent crowd on. I think it might have been game, Jez, when we got them, you remember them waterproof jackets we got that were sponsored by Multisport?
Yeah,
I do.
Some random reason they were yellow and black.
Yeah.
I think it was that game, and we had his photo taken, didn't we? Team photo. We were right proud of ourselves, weren't we, with these jackets on?
Yeah. Can you remember? Can I just interrupt there and just tell a little story about them jackets? They were. Who was it that owned Multisport?
Was it
Q Ali's uncle?
Yeah. Q's uncle. Yeah.
That's right. And so we've got these. We'd had the cotton, tracksuit tops and training tops before, and we'd said, look, waterproof tops would be fantastic. Can we get some of those? So we got them provided, and they were good quality. They're good waterproof tops, but they sewed in the back the More Sport logo. Sewed it through with like electric sewing machines. So when it rained, you got piss wet through all stitching.
Well, Stan still got his.
Yeah, Stan still wears his.
Still wet. Yeah, he just randomly turned up. I think it was one game last season. He was randomly turned up with it on. 20 years old.
Yeah. So go on, you're at Burnley, Haggers.
Yeah, so we're at Burnley, and it's a big game, decent crowd on. I can't remember if we batted first or second, but once again, I'm down to bat at 4. So I'm sat there, and obviously at Burnley, you basically side on, aren't you, watching the game? And James Anderson's playing. So he was a little bit older than me, were Anders, when we were growing up. But for one reason or another, I played against him, but he'd never bowled in any games I'd faced. And by this point, obviously, words got round that he's bowling at a really good pace. You didn't realise how quick it was until you actually saw him bowl. So I'm sat there watching side on at Burnley, down to go in at 4. Anderson's peeling in off side screen, and honestly, he was bowling absolute rocky. I couldn't sit ball. And I don't know if you remember Jez Dudge, but back then he was quite erratic as well, weren't he? So it was going everywhere. He was bowling like beamers, he was bowling bouncers, he was bowling absolute jaffers. And basically, I'm sat there thinking, if he bowls a beamer at me or he bounces, I'm not getting out of the way of it. There's absolutely no chance. It's going to hit me. So we go one down. You're Nicky round. So Nicky's walking off. He sits down, and Nicky said exactly that. He said his biggest weapon is he don't know where he's bowling it. So how are we meant to know where it's going?
Yeah.
So I'm sat there thinking, he's got Nicky worried here, and Nicky's been playing for a long time. I'm thinking, honestly, I was shitting my pants. So, and I'm due in at any minute. But what I'm thinking is, right, well, against Todd, Nicholson were quick. They moved me down order. I'm thinking they'll move me down order. They've got to move me down order.
Wait, you're thinking this when you've got your pads on?
I've got my pads on. So I'm not watching game thinking what's he bowling, looking at field and what have you. My head's all over the show, absolutely all over the show. So next wicket falls, I can't remember who it were, and I'm standing up, but whilst I'm doing it, I'm expecting somebody to tell me to sit down. Dave Wally ran after me. So I'm thinking, they'll send Dave Wally in before me, definitely, and I'll just get shunted down order. So next wicket falls, and I'm still thinking, that surely they can't send me in against this. Surely. Like I said, I'd not played a lot of second team cricket. I bet he were bowling 5 yards quicker than anything I'd ever faced. Anything.
Yeah.
So I stands up, and it felt like I was in a dream. So I'm kind of walking out, and I'm thinking somebody's going to shout me back in a minute. I was that nervous, I could barely hold back. I think I dropped bat on the way out. And still, as I'm walking onto the pitch, I'm still expecting somebody to shout, Haggers, so-and-so's going in.
Sit down.
It was probably only until I got halfway towards wicket where I thought, I'm going to have to do this now. So, like you said, Joe, I was in no frame of mind whatsoever to go and face that. It must have been bowling at like 85 mile an hour, and so I goes out, I took guard, I don't know why. So I text my guard, and he's at the end of his run. I'm thinking, please don't bounce me a ball of beamer, because I am not getting out at way of it. So he runs up, bowls, and at this point, I think I'm that nervous that I've lost my hearing. I can't hear anything because I remember going forward like a token gesture off, got a token gesture off striding, and he come running down wicket in Anders with his arms in his head, and I thought, I'm nowhere near it, absolutely nowhere near it. I thought he was appealing for caught behind until I turned round and my stumps were absolutely everywhere. This is obviously the first ball, and obviously bat under arm, and as I'm walking off, I know it sounds bad, but I thought, just thank God for that. Thank God I haven't been hurt. So
what a great story.
Yeah, my confidence took a bit of a battering that day, and I don't think I ever recovered from that. But I say that 18 months later, we're playing for England. So
I mean, there's such different trajectories there, isn't there? In where people, you were saying that you said that you probably weren't ready to bat at 4 in the first team. Do you think going in that early when you didn't think you were ready hindered your development?
Like I said, Joe, I'll be honest with you, when I was younger, I didn't really believe in myself anyway. And it's something I've got better with as I've got older, which happens naturally anyway, because, you score more runs, you get more experience, and you just, for me, I've just started to believe in myself as I've got older a little bit more. But I didn't believe in myself. I didn't have them runs. I didn't have any 50s under my belt going into the first team thinking, to be honest, I didn't think I deserved to play because I've not really got a score. I just thought we were playing because they were short or what have you. And I never recovered from that. And I'm amazed we've spent this long talking about my first team career, to be honest, because I think we're about 15 games or something. But
that side of it, it's not about where you play, what you play, it's how you enjoy it and how you contribute to a club, like we've got. And that story you've told there is an absolute classic. We've listened to quite a few.
Yeah, it's a decent tale to tell, isn't it? Because he's England's greatest ever bowler, isn't he now? So
yeah,
and that's one of the good things about cricket, isn't it? You can play against anyone, really, can't you?
But just breaking that down, Phil. You look at how the game before, you knew that this lad's quick and they're going to move me around and they will look after you. And the fact that it's going back probably 3 decades and a similar story of Nicky's come in the dressing room and not fill you with confidence, which I'm no doubt he'll listen to this and we'll laugh and joke about it. But it's exactly the same that time when I can't remember it. I don't know if Gary will be able to help me, when Brian Higgin came back in dressing room and it was, it's a poor wicket and someone's bowling at the speed of light and Brian's come in, took his left pad off. Other people are sat around trying to get the pads on shaking, and he said, some fucker's going to get killed out there today.
Yeah, his phrase was, it's like goose green.
Yeah.
But that was my thought straight away, because I thought, Nicky can obviously play. He's been around, a long time.
Yeah.
I thought, he's got, and he'd rattled Nicky. I thought he's got Nicky rattled here.
Yeah.
I thought, God knows what happens when I go in here. But, but like you were saying, then, to be honest, I didn't think I definitely weren't ready. I didn't believe in myself. I didn't believe that I'd earned right to play first team cricket, and that just, it just dented my confidence even more, really. I can't remember playing again I don't know if I played that season after that or not. It's a long time ago, isn't it? 20 years ago,
absolutely,
isn't it?
Yeah. So then, you're developing as a cricketer, you're getting older, and you're clearly a real, strong character within the cricket club. People look up to you. You're contributing to the club atmosphere and playing in the seconds and developing. How was your mindset when you were like early 20s and going through the 20-year-old to get into mid 20s? What was your mindset then around the cricket? Because what years would that have been? That been late 2000s probably.
Like you said, Jez, early 20s. To be honest, that's when I started to mature a bit, really, because after that little spell at first team in 2001, I was working at the time. I left school and got a job straight away, so I had a bit of money in my pocket. And the thing were, the lads who were playing cricket with at the time, don't get me wrong, I got on with them and they were great lads, but they weren't my mates. And my mates were a different set of lads who were out on beer every weekend, and I was playing cricket. And I had a period of time where I felt like I was missing out on what my mates were doing. Going to Blackpool, want beer during summer and what have you. Now, so I got a bit. I was close to packing it in a few times, and looking back, thank God I didn't, because I was packing it in for the wrong reason. But I carried on, and I think the main reason I carried on is because my mum enjoyed coming watching me play. She always has done. And she, to be honest, she thought it was keeping me on straight and narrow, which it were. It were stopping me from going out on beer all day at weekend and getting into bother, as you do. So I had a couple of years where I messed about with it a bit. And 2002, I missed start at season. I fell off a bus at Burnley bus station and did all my ankle ligaments in after I'd had a few shandies, and so I missed start at season. That were a bit of a non-starter. 2003, I had a really good start to the season, scored a lot of runs, absolutely fleeced my dad at start of the season, because my dad used to give me little incentives, and it was good because he didn't really understand cricket. So he kind of gave me incentives which were quite easy to achieve. So he started with saying, if you get 20, I'll give you a fiver, and then I'll give you £1 a run after that. So I started getting 20s and 30s every week. And then he obviously realised he were onto a bit of a loser there. So he said, right, 50. If you get 50, I'll give you 20 quid, and then I'll give you £1 a run after you get 50. So to started season in 2003, I got 97 in my first game, 53 in my second game, and then 82 not out in my third game. So I don't think he ever paid up fully. I had to let him off at some point. But
sounds about right.
I kind of messed about with it for a couple of years, and to be honest, other people will looked at me and probably thought he's not interested. He's not gonna last.
Yeah.
And then it got to a point where I thought, look, I need to make a decision here. If I'm going to carry on playing, then I've got to get my head down and get stuck into it and make an effort, get involved more. I'd have a beer after games, but I'd never stop down for a long time after the game. I'd probably have a beer, then go and meet my mates in town. But I thought, right, you've got to make a decision here. Get your head down, get on with it, or just stop playing. But don't carry on. Don't carry on turning up, complaining that you're not going out with your mates, and because you're not doing anybody any favours then. So I think once I got my head around that and said, right, get stuck into it, not just committing yourself to playing side, but social side of it as well. So from like 2004 onwards, I just got to know lads a lot better, like Dooch, Stanley, Gav Shields, Paul Stanley, and that's when they become mates, and that's when it gets a lot more enjoyable because you're there all day. Yeah. You're there all day together, aren't you?
No. So really, so you've answered part of the question there in those middle years of the 2000s. You've really got yourself. You've made the decision that you want to commit to the cricket, but also make it, quite a big part of your life. Get these lads who are top friends, top lads that you're going to, mate around with them and become part of that cricket club folklore, if you will. I mean, 2004. Do you want to talk about that incident in 2004?
Which one?
Well, I'm thinking of one. If you've got some others,
there might have been a couple of others, but I think my mum's going to listen to this, so I'll. So where's the cup final? Yeah, you're not on about Blazer's tongue, are you?
Well, you can tell us both.
Well, a bit of a story from semi-final. So semi-final against Enfield, one of the most unbelievable games of cricket you'll ever watch. One of the reasons is that their pro, Alvaro Peterson's absolutely smashing it to all parts. Looks like he's going to get 300 on his own, never mind the team get 300. And then he's 150 not out, and then he just lobs one up to like a part-time off-spinner.
You'll find he was deceived in the flight.
Yeah, but anyway, it's semi-final. So that day, there were nowhere near as big a crowd on as Worsley Cup final for obvious reasons. But Frank Entwistle had set up his own bar up in that West Stand. So knowing Frank, he'll give it a really daft name. And it would do it Stella Challenge. So it would 10 cans. You paid your money for your 10 cans of Stella, and Frank were working behind the bar, and he'd mark you off that you'd had a can. So me and Tommy Browley. Everybody remembers Tommy.
Yeah.
So me and Tommy Browley are knocking these Stellas back, and all of a sudden Tommy's next to me, and I didn't know what was going on with him, but he was sticking his tongue out, and I thought he was having some kind of allergic reaction, some kind of fit. Anyway, so it turns out he's drinking so he's on his 9th can of Stella. He remembers it, and there's a wasp inside. So. And what he said I said to him, he actually said after, I knew there was something in my drink, but I thought it were a fag end, so I thought it'd be right. So he he thinks there's a fag end in this can of Stella, and he thinks it's all right to drink that, but it turns out it's a wasp. So he's kind of swelled it around in his mouth, wondering what's that. So this wasp has stung him on the tongue. Straight away, his tongue's out there. He can't talk properly. But he goes back to the bar, wanting his 10th can of Stella that he's paid for, and he can't talk properly. Frank thinks he's pissed, absolutely pissed out of his head, and that he shouldn't be drinking anymore, and says, Tommy, I'm not giving you another one. You've had enough. But Tommy can't talk properly because he's got stung on the tongue by a wasp. So
he failed the challenge.
Right, he did, yeah. But anyway, going to the final. So Worsley Cup final, obviously one of the greatest days in our history as a club. The days are blur, as it will have been for a lot of people. But everyone will remember you had your marquees all day at bottom of the ground. It was a great setup, and I ended up in a marquee with a bunch of lads. I can't even remember who it was, to be honest. It's that long ago, and I drank that much that day. Anyway, and when Tiffer were on a few months back, I think somebody suggested that it was Tiffer who decided for us to start drinking Flaming Sambuca. I don't think that. He might correct me on this, but I don't think that's right. I can't think why Tiffer had done that because he were playing. Mind you, we are talking about Tiffer here. But anyway, so somebody's decided to start drinking Flaming Sambuca. So me, being, way too much to drink by that point, thought, yeah, this is a great idea. So we weren't doing it in cups or glasses. We were putting it in each other's mouth and setting it on fire in his mouth. So I'd never done this before. So a few lads did it. It was my turn. Tilts my head back, mouth of Sambuca, lighter goes in. All of a sudden, I feel like there's an explosion in my mouth, which there is because my mouth, I've got my mouth's on fire. So I spat it out, but I had my head back. So as I've spat it out, it's gone all over my face, all down my neck, but it's still alight. So everyone who stood around me is kind of taking a step back as if to say, Jesus Christ, he's on fire. So I've managed to put it out. I can't remember how we put it out. Put it out. Could feel it were a bit of a mess, and there were a few people saying it's a mess. Is that you need to go to hospital. Actually ended up seeing St John's Ambulance, and St John's Ambulance were adamant that they wanted me to go up to hospital and get it looked at. But obviously, I'm thinking, you've absolutely no chance. We're about to win Worsley Cup. It's going to be one of the best nights we've ever had now. I'm not sitting in A&E whilst everyone's on beer down at Lowerhouse. So
I'd rather be scarred for life.
I left it, carried on, put rest at night. So I woke up morning after, and when you've been out on a night out and you've done something daft or something's gone wrong, and you wake up and you don't realise it was, but after a few seconds you get that feeling in your stomach and you think, but I didn't know what it were. I couldn't really remember what had gone on. So I get up and I goes into the bathroom and I looks in the mirror and I thought, and obviously everything come flooding back to me then. So I thought, it's a message this, I need to go up to hospital. But the problem I had, my dad had booked day off as well. So he were off work, he were downstairs, because he'd been on game the day before, wanted to have a few beers, so we booked day off. I thought, I've got to try and get past my dad here to get to hospital, to get it looked at without him seeing it. I thought, I can't tell him how I've done it, he'll go absolutely berserk. So I gets changed, goes downstairs, he comes walking through straight away onto the stairs, says it, what have you done? I thought, I can't tell him, he'll go mad. I'll get a right bollock. I thought, it's not it, mate. I said, when I went to help out before the game, putting marquees up, I said, obviously I've been touching grass. I think I've had an allergic reaction to some kind of pesticides. So,
did he buy it?
I don't think so, Joe. I just said to him, I said, I'm going to hospital. And I'll never forget, I got on a bus at Lane Ends. The bus were going along Aki Road, and this was Aki Road were in its prime, you know what I mean? There's people getting on from Aki Road, and they were looking at me. And I thought it must be bad if somebody from Aki Road's looking at me like that. Yeah. Good day though, wasn't it?
Yeah, thinking, why Simon Weston on the bus to Burnley Town Centre?
Oh Jesus!
Oh, Haggers.
We'll have to put we're gonna have to put a disclaimer on this episode. I think. Don't try this at home.
Yeah, we will. No, Haggers, those stories are fantastic as we talk about your career and we come in and it's just so much fun. So then, you go towards the late 2000s and into 2010 and beyond. What's your recollection and thoughts around senior cricket at that stage?
Well, I'm not getting to that point. I've not played first team for a while, Jez. I think my last proper first team game, that were 2007.
Yeah.
And I batted 7 that day. Got a duck. True to form in first team, but a bit disappointed that game because the week before I'd got a ton in second team, batted all the way through, and that game against Enfield at home, I think it were, there were an opening spot available, and that were because I've always preferred opening batting. I've always loved opening batting. I've always struggled batting down order, waiting around to go in. I like to either start game, bat first rate. You're opening, you know what's going on then. Get your pads on, get out there, or obviously field first, and then get out there. I've always hated waiting around to go into bat. So that was the one game where I thought, I think I'll get a shot here opening batting. And I didn't, I batted 7th, and it were actually, I think Paddy opened batting that day. So I was disappointed at that, and obviously didn't get any runs. So that last time, I played it first team. But yeah, going into late 2000s, I'd had a bit of a dry spell really at seconds because my eyes had gone. I needed glasses, and I didn't realise it. I didn't know because it's not. I'm not completely blind out, but I just need them to sharpen everything up. And my eyes were going, and I didn't realise it. I only realised because at the time at work I was driving a forklift truck, and I had a medical at work for my forklift truck, and she said you need to go to opticians because you need glasses. So I went to opticians. They prescribed me some glasses. And as soon as I put them on and started having a net in them, I couldn't believe I'd spent like 2 years playing without them. Everything just, become a lot clearer. And that red blur that had been seen come down. It actually looked like a red ball. So I had a bit of a lean spell in that period, and then 2010 I took. There were a big sea change of players around that time because like 2007, 8, 9. Matt Stanley was still playing, Gav was still playing, Paul Stanley was captain around then, Phil Haggerty at Lowerhouse then, Swifty were playing. Me and Swifty opening batting, he used to absolutely love it. We put a partnership on every week, me and Swifty. They were great with me, with Swifty, and I think I needed that after I'd come down from the first team. I just needed somebody to put my arm around me really and just, say, hey, don't worry about it, you can play, and don't be too hard on yourself. But there were a big turnover of players round about that point. Gavin Stanley retired. Phil Ed didn't retire, but just decided, he was going to give it a miss for a couple of years. I think Swifty left, Paul Stanley jacked it in. So we probably lost half the team, really. So I had to, obviously I put my name forward for captaincy. I wanted to do it, but I had to do it really because there were nobody else really to do it. So that were, once again, from a captain point of view, a baptism of fire because there were a load of young lads who come into the dressing room who I didn't really know them. Obviously, I knew him from seeing them knocking about and knew that they played in thirds, but never really played any cricket with him. And your likes like Lewis Marsden, Reece Woodworth, Cos Hope were coming through then. Probably we were coming through. I think Lavers were a couple of years later, I think, Joe. Were you coming through about 2010 or a bit later?
I were in the first team. So that would have been... Sorry, Haggers. No, that was... So I played half a year with you in the second team, which was... I played probably 4 games the previous season and then half a year after that. Because our first game... where we opened the batting was very memorable against Bacup, Haggers. I don't know if you can remember it.
You know what? I don't remember this game, but I'm quite honoured that somebody's got a superstition that's not named after me, but that's based on me.
Yeah.
It's Paul Stanley, isn't it?
Yeah.
He never watches first ball of a game. First ball of a game or it's season?
Of every game.
Of every game, because I got run out at first ball at game at Bacup.
It was
you can't remember it though.
It was I can't remember who was bowling. I think it might have been somebody like a lad called Sam Sanderson or something. And you flicked this ball into the leg side and you shouted 3 straight away. Which as a ball game. And which as a kind of 15-year-old I thought, fair enough. I think this might be optimistic. But so anyway, we got one, and then we got another one, and I set off. I was running our in all right, and then I just heard the kind of clatter of stumps, and I turned round, and Haggers would run out, walking off, and I thought, oh no, this is going to be my fault, isn't it? when I get back in, I better get some. Johnny Whiting told us a couple of weeks ago when we spoke to him about it. You were actually on both your knees apparently. When you run out, you'd slid on your knees to get in.
Can't be many people who've been run out off the first ball of the game coming back for a third
of the season. First ball of the season.
All right, okay.
It were
Matt Stanley were once run out going for a single, and going for a single, and this were down at Burnley. Probably one of the angriest I've ever seen someone, Paul Stanley, that day. We were playing Burnley. This second team, they had like an all-star second team. Like Michael Kelly were playing, Dan Pickup, regular good second teamers. They had Shocker. And we'd bowled them out for like 110, 120, really good performance with ball. I think we were about 50 for 1 chasing it. We were absolutely cruising. I got about 30 odd, got out. And then before we knew it, I think we were about 70 for 6 or 70 for 7. It was just ridiculous. So we're sat there in front of changing rooms at Burnley. Paul Stanley absolutely blazing at how we look like we're throwing this game away. So Matt Stanley's been run out. So Stanley, he's even angrier now, is Paul. But as he comes back in, he says, at first I thought it was 3. And he's been run out going for a single. I think it was single. And he said at first when I hit it, I thought it was 3. But Paul Stanley's completely lost plot. So and he's ended up. He didn't do it on purpose, but he's ended up smashing a plate next to him. So this plate smashed, and there were a few people on the balcony up at Burnley. And one of them, literally, as soon as noise faded of it smashing, this bloke shouts, "Oi, it's not a Greek wedding." I'm sat next to Paul. I was absolutely dying to laugh. I thought if he sees me laughing here, he'll kill me with his bare hands. Anyway, we actually went on to win the game by the skin of his teeth. But, so.
Brilliant.
I mean, it was, when I first went into the second team, Jez, there was Haggers, Matt Marquis, Matt Stanley, Paul Stanley was playing as well, Matt Doughty. Can you remember a game at Rishton, Haggers, where it was absolutely saturated?
That's him, wasn't it?
Yeah. And it was...
Matt Stanley had a...
Yeah,
he had a meltdown, didn't he?
Yeah.
But... Get the game on, Joe, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Matt Stanley had a meltdown because he was stood in a puddle. And he had... Yeah. Can you remember the old, Adidas... They had these old Adidas boots that was like climber cool. So they had vents in the bottom, which were great. You know, they kept your feet dry or whatever, until you stood in something wet and all the water used to seep through the bottom and your feet were just saturated. And Matt Stanley had stood in a puddle. And then for the rest of the game, he was saying, even though they were like 70 for 9, we shouldn't be playing. We shouldn't be out here. Absolute shocking. Anytime we took a wicket.
Yeah, well, vice captain that season.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jez, go on.
And you got the game on, Haggers. You got the game on.
Get the game on. We won, Jez. So.
Yeah, you got the game on.
Send more house to save the house.